Welcome to the Home Team Sacramento podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Josh Takimoto. My friend, motivational speaker Kevin Bracey is not here today, but that's okay because tonight we have a former defensive back from San Diego State and owner of G6 Performance Training, Gabe Lemon. What's going on, man?
Doing well, man. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I knew it was just a matter of time before we got you on this podcast. We had you on the Combine podcast almost 2 years ago, and we've been following you ever since. It's like, man, this dude's just doing way too many good things for us not to have him on this podcast at some point. So, and
Man,
I want to let everybody know too that he's expecting his third child at any moment now, and he was still willing to do this podcast. So, man, we have a lot of love for that, man. We appreciate you.
thank you guys. Thank you, bro. I can't believe it's already been 2 years since our last time speaking. But man, thank you. I'm very humble to be on this podcast and just want to continue spreading light, man. So that's what this is all about.
We appreciate you, man. And like I was telling you, the name of this podcast is called Home Team because we believe that anybody who, coach, athlete, trainer, anybody who's doing good things, amazing things for the athletic community here in Sacramento is a part of our home team. And man, I can't think of a better person to have on this podcast than you, man, because you're doing so many good things, which we want to get into. But let's start here, man. Let's let everybody know if they don't know you. Tell us a little bit about your athletic background, where you grew up, and then how you got into the training world.
Yeah. So I'm from Southern California. Grew up in Los Angeles, California. Spent some time in Orange County toward my high school years. Got a scholarship to play collegiate football. So I was at San Diego State University. That was from 2009 to 13. Played safety there. Man, it was one of those dreams. I've been playing football, since 6 years old. High school, I did multiple sports, basketball, track as well. But I had the opportunity and was blessed enough to, like I said, receive a Division I scholarship of football. And it's funny because you kind of have your life and have something planned, and then all of a sudden life happens, honestly. And so I actually got injured my senior year at San Diego State University, which kind of put a damper on things moving forward. Which, looking back, I say that was the biggest blessing, was me getting, because it allowed me to, and during the time was definitely in a dark place, because you kind of lose this identity of like, what do I do now? Like I said, I've been playing football since yay high, and once that was gone, it was definitely a place of not knowing. But throughout the months and time, I was able to find some good people, have some great people around me. Got into coaching, which eventually led into what I'm doing now. So that whole coaching, this helping the youth, kind of passing on the knowledge that I learned, and found out that honestly it was bigger than me.
Yeah.
It was bigger than me. And training provide a platform where no matter what age you were, you're allowed to be vulnerable, in this, like, vulnerable physically, mentally. Everybody's looking to get a little bit better. And I love being part of the process, so that ultimately led to the start of G6 and what it's all about, man. It's kind of helping people just find out the best versions of themselves. So
I love that, man. I like what you said too about you love being a part of the process, because one of our previous guests, we were kind of talking about how sometimes coaches want to have this complete transformation. If you're a high school coach, you want to have this complete transformation for all of your athletes. You want to take them from point A to point B, and you want to hope that there's this complete athlete, complete person when they leave your program. But the bottom line is, I mean, you're only maybe in their life for a short amount of time, and you're just a part of their journey. You're a part of their process. Most likely it's not going to be this completed thing by the time they leave your program, but maybe down the road, those seeds that you planted will come back to them. It's like when they're in the workforce or at their job or with their families, like, oh yeah, I remember when coach used to say this. And so I just love the fact that you're focused on the process, and that you just enjoy that part of it. It sounds like you're not really like, hey, I would love to see you as this completely transformed athlete after training, but it's all about the process. It's about focusing on the process, and it's about making you or helping you guide you along that process. And I love hearing that, man. That's why you're so good at what you do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's seriously, man. I appreciate that. It's it takes a village, and if I can be one of those people that can help and provide impact for an athlete or an adult, like you just mentioned, man, it would mean more to me. It's not about chasing the weight room numbers. It would mean more to me if they remember something down the road, as a young man or young woman, and like they can go back and be like you said, like, oh, coach said this, and that can be the shift of if they go down that left path or that right path. you know
Yeah.
um and it's like I said, it's if I can be any type of voice or influence, that's an honor to me.
Well, and I want to say this too, man. I forgot to put this on my notes, so you're gonna have to fill in a lot of the blanks that I'm going to leave here. But when you talk about making an impact, based on what I see on Instagram and previous conversations that you and I have had when you did the podcast last time, it's obvious that you're not just talking about your athletes in the weight room or on the field. You recently shared a story about a young lady that you've been working with, and you guys blessed her in a major way. Like I said, I meant to take some more notes on that whole situation so I'd be prepared, but the kids kind of got out of hand at one point, so I didn't get a chance to do it. So can you explain a little bit about that, because I think it's really important for people, coaches or athletes, to know. It's like, hey, when we talk about you having an impact in your community, this is what it could look like if you were really taking it seriously. So tell us a little bit about that situation.
And so, you know what, like, honestly, it it was a situation. We have a young lady, she's 24, and literally, like, every bad card that life can throw at you was thrown at her. I mean, as far as like overcoming cancer, um dealing with oh, what's I can't even, I'm going blank right now, as far as it's a nerve disease that she's already dealing with.
Hmm.
uh yeah, so I
Oh,
mean, she's dealing with
wow.
that's unheard of,
Yeah.
right? I've been blessed through a coach, a friend of mine, trainer, Rashid Kane. People call him Shine. You know, he blessed us, putting us together, and once again, being just a part of the village. It just got to a point like, man, how can I be of service to you outside of weightlifting, right, or lifting, or making her a better athlete? And one day I was just like, okay, let me just put something together. It really wasn't, all that planned. It was just like, okay, what can I do? What am I good at? So I called some, buddies. I have some great people around me. We put this event together at the park. Um, and I mean, man, it was, even looking at that day, I'm talking about, it was 37 degrees outside,
Yeah, it's
you know,
cold.
but man, what was awesome was just seeing the amount of people that came, because the people that came had no idea I was doing this. I just told them I was doing a boot camp in the park. They had no idea like proceeds were going to the young lady. So man, it was just a great morning, great day. Just seeing people, uh, number one, just come out to help themselves,
Yeah.
and like I said, let the element stop them. And after I was able to kind of tell them what the cause was for, and you know, it's like some people even gave more, right?
Wow.
Like,
Yeah.
just it really wasn't about the amount, but it was just the fact that, like I said, and this is kind of based on what you're talking about, is it took a community. It took a community from different areas of Sacramento, and it was great people, and I was blessed to even be a part of it, man. It wasn't just me, and that was the fulfilling part,
Hmm.
that people didn't even know what this was about,
Right.
right? And you kind of tell them, and then their heart even opened up even more, toward individual they have no idea, they don't know about. So it was awesome, man. And just the fact when I was able to, hand her that check
Yeah.
and just, she doesn't like showing emotion, which is,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think in the video we called her that, 1%. And she's at this 1% of people that like, honestly, and I told her, I'm like, man, you changed my life.
Mm,
Like, blessing when you come to me, like as much as I can give you, I'm getting it right back, just being with you for the time being. So man, it was great, man. This, because I was even hesitant of in making a video of it
sure.
because I was just, but at the same time, I'm like, all right, like this is what we're about. This is we're over here to, create leaders and show that we're of service. Like I think we were put on this earth to serve people. We weren't put on like that video was not about gaining likes or followers or nothing like that. I'm like, man, if someone can see this and kind of be led to go out and help a person that they don't know, I'm like, that's what it's about, man. Like I said, just serving others, thinking outside of yourself and not looking to gain anything from it, So it was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, I love it, man. It's a cool video to watch too, because it was funny when you presented her with the check. I think she just kept saying like, "What are you doing, Gabe? What are you doing to me, Gabe?" Because like you said, I don't want
You
to show this emotion.
was up because it's funny because I was trying to hop in on her skill training and she for some reason and this would be her she ended up following me like we both got off the freeway at the same time and she's like
Oh,
what the heck is so I had to play it real cool, act like I was just there just kind of check in and hang out and like I said it like you got to see the authentic reaction from her because
yeah.
like she's been dealt a lot of bad cards, man, and I'm glad I was able to, be some type of positive impact for, so
Yeah. Well, and I like this idea too of like you're saying, like as a leader, especially as a leader of young athletes and a leader of coaches, you're not only being an example of that, you're not only doing something practical, but you're also giving and creating an opportunity for the people around you to also be a part of that, right? Like you could create a video where you do it all on your own and there's no way for other people to get involved. But as a leader, you're like, hey, like why would I not give other people a chance to get involved too? And then they actually can be a part of this amazing thing that's happening. And I love that, man. Like I think that's a cool thing. And yeah, I mean, you're on Instagram a lot. I'm on Instagram a lot. We see stuff like that. It's like, hey, it's cool that you're doing this thing, but you can see through it, man. You can see when it's not genuine. It feels like, okay, you did this because you want, to increase your following and make it seem like you're a certain way, but we all know that you're not. That video to me, man, felt very genuine. The reactions of everybody from the people at the boot camp workout to the young lady who received the gift, it was all genuine, man. So I love seeing that, and that's what we're about here, man. Like you're making the home team better, and not only that, giving other people the opportunity to do the same. So I just love that, man. I thought it was a cool moment. When you're training, obviously your main, I mean, people come to you, athletes come to you, coaches come to you because they want to become better athletes or they want their athletes to become better. But you're also, like we keep saying, you're a leader. We know you place a high priority on character and integrity, serving others. So when you have conversations with your student athletes, do you make a point of trying to help them understand that like you're a student athlete leader? That's something Kevin always talks about, like student athlete leaders. Like you have a platform, you have a following on social media, people know you around the community. Like I feel like athletes have this responsibility to be leaders in the community. But are those conversations that you guys have with your athletes?
oh yeah. It's funny because I feel like you would never really hear this from a coach, but I I like to not put that pressure of them on being athletes. I don't really like saying that so much because I'm just feeding into it. I'm feeding into this identity that we don't know if it's going to be done after high school, done after college, even if you have a successful career with pros. We're talking about you're 30 to 35, or if you're blessed enough to be the Tom Brady's of the world, 40. But
Sure.
I'm like, you still have God willing, you still have a lot of life. right? And it's kind of one of those things like, and I've heard this saying like, how you do something is how you do everything. So I don't like breaking it up. I mean, the same way you would approach a game day should be the same way you approach the classroom, right? And the beauty of sports, it's really a representation on life. Like, in what environment are you going to get joy, pain, happiness, like hurt, all in, possibly a 60-minute, you know, game. And I'm like, a lot of that can be brought to life because, and we all know how, 2020 was and things like that. I'm like, you guys have to kind of take a step back and look at everything you guys accomplished already, right? A big word that I've used over the years is pivoting.
Mm.
So pivot, learn how to pivot. We couldn't be stuck, and it is like a basketball term, but it was one of those things that I'm like, okay, now that this and this happened, what are you guys going to do next?
Right.
Right? Not as just the athlete, but just as humans in general, because I mean, it all affected us differently and it's still affecting us now. But it's like part of this, if we look at it, look what the type of person you became after the year. Right? Don't
Yeah.
look at, like, let's switch our perspective instead of being like, oh man, 2020 and 2021 were the hardest years. Like, look at it like, what did I develop during that time that I would never developed if that didn't happen?
Yeah.
Right. Like you said, that's part of the character. We're always building the character up every day. It's not something we were born or inherited with. Um, so it's kind of like, once again, not separating anything, keeping everything like you're a human at the end of the day. Give yourself some grace that, I mean, there's going to be moments where you don't, succeed, quote unquote. But I'm like, you have the opportunity. And I say this all the time. Like, every time you open your eyes, you did, like, God's waking you up for a reason. That you're not done. There's hundreds of thousands of people who are not going to wake up tomorrow. And,
Yeah.
and it's sad to hear, but I'm just like, we never know. We never know. So don't take for granted the time we've been given. Like, use that to become the best version of you, and use that to help others find the best version of themselves in whatever way. Like, lead in your own way, right? You don't have to be loud. Like, don't have to. This whatever works for you, you know. And yeah, man, it's that's something I try to preach to the young women and men that walk through this room. I'm like, guys, like, I want you guys to be as successful as you can as an athlete, but I want you to be a more successful human being. Because sports is only this part of your life. you know, uh, so it's and they take that. They understand that I care more about. I'm not just caring about that whatever hour or whatever on the field. I'm just like, man, you guys are human beings just like me. So, and I think they respect that from me. That, okay, he sees past just what I do on the field or court. So
Yeah, man, I love that. For anybody who's just listening, I'm nodding a lot. I feel like for some reason with today's audio, anytime like I acknowledge what you're saying by making some kind of sound, it just cuts your audio off completely. So I'm trying to stay as quiet as possible when Gabe's talking. But just so everybody knows, I'm just nodding like crazy because I love, man, what you just said. Especially, I feel like we could have just done a bunch of podcasts just off all the stuff you just said. But one of the things I thought was really interesting is you're completely right, man. Like, what other arena of life do you experience joy, pain, sadness, excitement, anger, frustration, all in, like you said, 60 minutes? And so sports is a perfect place to learn all of those life lessons. And, I think that's something that's for me, that's one of the most important special parts of sports. One of the most important parts of being a coach and the lessons you share, like you're sharing with your young athletes. All of these ideas are things that are going to help them in life. And I imagine, one of the questions I had for you was, obviously you're a D1 athlete. You played at a high level. You went through a lot of pain with your injury, both physically and emotionally. But I imagine that all of those things that you learned and went through as an athlete at whatever all high school level, college level, probably prepared you for a situation like this pandemic where your business is hurting because of the pandemic. People around you, people you care about are hurting, their businesses are hurting. How much do you feel like your athletic background has, I guess, strengthened you in those moments? And then, like, I guess how much, I guess, like we talked about before, it's kind of tough for a young athlete to recognize that all the time in the moment. But that's why you're teaching all these things. That's why we give positive criticism. That's why we challenge them and encourage them, is because we know those life lessons will come in play down the road at some point. But um, like, how do you feel like your athletic background has prepared you as a business owner, as a husband, as a father, as a a trainer, all those things? It's a long question. It's a long-winded question, but go for it, man.
It's one of those things I think about steadily every day. It's funny because I tell people I'm still playing safety right now. Um, I have to make sure, just like what I did when I prepared, to play on Saturdays. I have to make sure that I come prepared. Like I've studied, I brought my A game. I tell my clients, if I'm not on my A game, when you come see me, you guys are going to feed off that, right? And even as a business owner, the ironic thing about safety, we get to see the whole field. So I'm like, that's essentially what I'm doing as a business owner. I'm scanning everything, always like, okay, if, quote unquote, this coverage doesn't work, I have to think fast. Like, okay, all right, if that's not working, we're going to go to that. Boom, scheme. Um, and at the same time, make sure that I am bringing everybody up with me, because it doesn't matter if I succeed and the people I'm working with aren't doing well. I got to make sure that I find what makes them special and feed into that, right? And that's helped me as being a parent. That's helped me as being a husband, right? Because you understand with kids, it's like your kids don't see the stress.
Yeah.
They just want dad,
Right.
right? Even sometimes with my wife, it's like, okay, if she sees I'm stressing, she'll feel that she needs to pick up more of the slack. So it's just like, okay, I have to make sure that I'm staying balanced, and sometimes that requires is like telling people like, okay, I need help. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. you know,
Yeah.
I think vulnerability is such a strength. Even if that's telling the kids like, okay, daddy's a little tired right now. Like, can we please kind of calm it down, or tell my wife I may need help, or telling my fellow coworkers like, like, this feels a lot right now. Can you kind of take a little bit of the slack, and they appreciate that. Number one, they feel like they're important, right? So it's a team thing. But that's one thing I learned in business. I think when we spoke 2 years ago, it was just me.
Hmm.
And the one thing I was like, man, I can only go so far by myself, and during those 2 years, man, I've learned a lot, whether that's, from other trainers, coaches, just making conversation. I think making conversation with random people,
Yeah.
because somebody has something to give to you, whatever, like I think, you have to decipher what you want to take in and leave out. But man, I like been on a blessed journey, man, as far as like getting to see the transition. And I think it's more understanding how sports helped me, for this part of my life.
Mm.
Even that time, like when I got hurt, man, it was a deep depression. I'm like, I think I felt worse than anything, 2020 or COVID could have thrown at me. I was like, but I had to find a way. I'm like, okay, how do I get stronger from this? How am I going to pick myself up? And it wasn't me. I thought it was me isolating myself, but it was just reaching out to people. And that's what I tried to do even with business. Like when all this happened, whether that was having a Zoom training, or sometimes our Zoom training just turned into, an hour just of me listening, just seeing how they're doing. It wasn't necessarily
Yeah.
about the want to make sure you're good as an individual. And yes, that even happened with adults. Adults appreciated it. It wasn't just it, because as we know, it wasn't just kids struggling, it's everybody.
Yeah.
But who can you talk to? I kind of say that, trainers are almost like, it feels like we're almost like psychologists or something within that hour, right?
Yeah.
Uh, Sometimes that can get a little overwhelming, just because, I mean, depending on how many clients you have to turn on and off on how to approach a person. But at the same time, it's cool that people trust us enough to, with their body physically and with their, mind mentally, and it's been awesome, man. And I'm so thankful I played sports, because not many people have played sports, so they wouldn't have understood of what to do. Being an entrepreneur, man, that's like, if it wasn't for a football or anything, because, like, I don't even know if I would have been able to do it. You have to have thick skin. I kind of say there's nothing, like, even if you have a boss, there's nothing a boss can say to you that a coach has not said to you that's gonna make you quit. If you know what I mean, like,
Yeah,
there's
for sure.
thick skin. But like I said, and like we talked about earlier, man, just all those emotions that were in that team atmosphere, and even like the locker room. I think we don't take, like, that locker room environment of where you have all these group of guys from different areas, but I treat you like my brother,
Yeah.
right? And that kind of, I mean, that has been represented in the business world extremely. Like, even though I don't know you, I am going to trust you in order to move forward for the common goal.
Hmm.
It's not just about me, and depending on what position you're at, I'm going to trust that you're going to fulfill that, because, I mean, you excel at that and I can't do it. So none of this micromanaging or nothing. You just, you got to believe in other people's gifts, and like I mentioned before, keep uplifting them.
Yeah. Man, I have so many things to say off of that. I'm gonna try to keep it short. I feel like first of all, man, I feel like we need to get this G6 podcast underway. I don't know if you've ever thought about it. Have you done a podcast yet?
You know what? Crazy, and this is probably my first time sharing it. I
I'll make
had
it
an
exclusive.
Yeah, I had an idea for a podcast months ago. So I wanted to call it the Pivot Podcast.
Ooh, I like it.
And then I don't know, have you ever seen I Am Athlete?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think some of the guys from I Am Athlete kind of spun off into a different direction, but like, Ryan Clark, I don't know if you know Ryan Clark's over on Sports Center. I think
Yeah.
him, other guys. I saw this like last week. My videographer sent me his.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I know who was it though? It was Ryan Clark, and then who were the other guys?
Who's the guy? Who's the guy with the dreads that was on I Am Athlete? Is it Channing something? I think he played linebacker. I
I
can't
think
think of the other guy. I
I'm blanking. Yeah, I'm blanking. But I know what you're talking about.
I'm like, what? I'm like, no, they
Yeah.
took the name. No, but at the end of it, but even then, I was like, okay, it's not about the name. It's about what you're bringing
Right.
to the people. So it's that is something that I want to do. For sure, because I consider myself, and actually today is one of the days that I honor a guy that I follow, Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
Rest. One thing I took from him is he was big on storytelling,
Yep.
and that's what I like. I feel like that's where my passion is as well, is storytelling. Whether that's me telling my story, or honestly just hearing people's stories.
Yeah.
I that's what makes our race so great. The human race so great is we're all so different. But at the same time, we need to hear the everyday person story, rather than just some of the people we see on TV
Right.
all the time. Because how would you know? I think that's my thing. Like, how would you know unless they share it? So that's something in the works. Where I think we'll get something started pretty soon here.
I love it. Yeah, man. I'm speaking for a lot of people. It needs to happen for sure. So once that happens, man, you let us know and we'll blast that out to make sure that people are aware of it, man. Because man, just in these 20 minutes that we've been talking, you've said so many good things. I also want to point this out too, man. I don't think I love this idea of you always playing safety on and off the field. Like that safety mentality is always at the forefront of your mind and how you look at business and family. But now I want to believe that you're just roaming your house, like we're in full pads and a helmet, just like roaming the living room, roaming the bedroom, roaming the bathroom. Like that's what I envision right now, man. Just always playing safety.
Yeah. No,
So
see, like, it's one of those things where that's directing the kids, as doing my best. And,
yeah.
like I'm Ravens defense right now. I'm getting my, but you know, truly, it's a not, and any entrepreneur, any leader, they understand like it doesn't turn off. Like
Yeah.
thing is, I'm sure you understand. We wear so many hats,
Yeah.
like, but you have to understand. It's kind of one thing I learned earlier into entrepreneurship. I have to learn when to take a hat off. Like this is not my responsibility, and sometimes that's like people can't do it because they want to, like I said, micromanage everything, and I'm just like, no. As much as I want the backer, quote unquote, or corner to do this, I have to let them be that athlete.
Yeah.
Oh, Scully, just like me. So,
Yeah.
it's definitely it, man. It can feel like it's a blessing and I don't want to say a curse, but it's just because your mind's never turned off. But yeah, it's this balance, man. It's just feel like we're all trying to figure it out. I'm trying to figure out. I don't have it all figured out,
Yeah.
but at least if you just have to be open to continue learning,
Yeah.
So
No, I think that's huge. And I loved what you said about being vulnerable too, because obviously, we've had plenty of conversations with former athletes, with coaches, and just through experience, being, a former high school athlete myself, even at that level, you see, obviously, and I think it's probably specifically with guys, there is that reluctance to do that because I think there's a lot of ego involved and pride involved, and ultimately that can cause a lot of issues. You know what I mean? So it's a funny thing. It's like an ironic thing, right? Like you think you're being strong by taking that stuff on and not, sharing those thoughts or those feelings with people. But the more you do it, it's actually in a lot of ways making you a lot weaker, and it's going to eventually hurt you in different ways or prevent you from getting to where you're trying to go. But I feel like it's once you get past that hump of ego and pride, I think it opens up like a whole different world for you as an athlete, as an entrepreneur, as a parent, a spouse, whatever your roles may be. I think it just completely just opens up a whole different world for you. Once you're able to let that go.
mhm.
So yeah. So one thing I wanted to ask you um, was, well, first of all, and please forgive me because I know we've talked about this before, but I can never remember. What does G6 stand for?
Yes. So I'm not even. It's nothing deep.
Okay.
Like six was my. I know it's people are like. So I don't know if you remember. I have six sisters. So I'm the oldest of seven. So people are like,
That's
"Oh, is that
right.
sisters?" I'm like, "Nah." I'm like, honestly, a younger safety, he gave me that name. My number was six in college. So I was just like, so okay. Like I think there was some play we were like playing Michigan, and I don't know. I hit some guy real good, and then next morning he's just like G6 coming. Like he came down like a G. I was like, all right, like okay, we'll roll with it.
That's it.
There's nothing deep behind it. I guess I have to think of a better story for people to.
No, I like that. I like that story, man. It's like a hard right turn from what I expected because I couldn't remember. I'm like, I think it was like there was some deep meaning behind it. And now you say that, I do remember you explaining the sister thing and how you have six sisters. And then now that you say that, I do remember the play and your
Yeah.
teammate just calling you G6. So I'm gonna try to remember that for next time. I'm gonna try to remember that.
All right, yeah, that's just Gabe's college number. That's it.
Perfect. Simple enough. Let me ask you this, man. So when you're training your athletes, obviously you've been around some incredible athletes in your playing days, and I'm sure you've trained some amazing athletes as a coach. And I know there's a bunch of stuff that goes into this, but if you had to choose maybe one characteristic or one like thing that it makes up an athlete's mindset that takes them from being a good athlete to a great athlete, what is that one trait that
Mm,
separates a good athlete from a great athlete?
that's a good question. How honestly, consistency. I think first athlete that comes to mind is like Steph Curry. Like this guy, we see everybody, and there's a lot of distractions. You see the Instagram videos and this and that. I want to be a shooter, but I think about all the work these guys put in outside of the videos. I'm like, this guy this past off season got to the point where he didn't want to hit the rim
Hmm.
on training. Like, but you see it reflect. You see it reflect in the game. And I think that happens with all the great players. Like we just catch bits and pieces of what they want to show us. But I'm like, this dude Odell was probably making one-hand catches before he went viral or, quote unquote, with the Giants and stuff like that. I'm like, we have to think about that. It's consistency. And that's why I tell the athletes, I'm like, it's more than what you do just with me. Like I can meet you 5 days out of the week. That's only 5 hours out of the week. You know, as much as I can possibly make a small difference, that requires you to put in extra work outside of, you know, the weight room and then being consistent with it. Like simply that's what it is. Like continue. And I've heard this quote. It's regardless, the days are either going to be reps or mileage, you
Hmm.
know? And that was one of those things that I'm like, okay, you can either get something for it or regardless, like time's going to go by.
That's
So
really good.
what are you going to do with it? Are you going to make it count or did you just put in like that? I say almost like pointless miles in your body for no reason. Like, and then another word that comes to mind, and I said this 2 years ago, just intentional. How are you going to be with everything? It's one thing. Yes, you can be consistent, but it's going to be to a point where you just feel like you're going through the motion, going through like, okay, it's the same routine, this and that. I'm meal prepping, I'm stretching, I'm doing all this, but like, how intentional are you going to be with it? Are you actually gaining something? Is your mind completely like we say present? Are you in the moment? There's I feel like we miss that a lot. We miss on just kind of being here in the moment. We're thinking about what we can be and what we used to be. Like there's too many right nows that we miss.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
how many nows, and there's something you can ask yourself: how many right nows have you missed?
Hmm.
No, I heard that, and we talked that. I mean, we know the same gentleman. I think you met him, Inky Johnson.
Inky Johnson, yeah, he spoke at the combine a couple of times. Yeah, incredible.
I've been following his podcast, the Serendipity podcast. I think that's what he talked about recently, and I'm just like, man, that's deep. We're too focused on what we're going to be. I'm like this, like, and this is Kung Fu Panda reference. He said the present is a gift.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
such a dad thing right there. But seriously,
I got it though.
you know, like, how many are you fine with being where you're at? Like being intentional with what you're doing, and like I said, continue to be consistent. Are you gonna have the mindset to keep, like I said, putting in the work that really matters every day, right? So yeah, man, I think that's honestly I think what separates the greats, even the really goods from the greats.
Right.
So
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's funny you said that, man, because I listened to a podcast the other day, and they were talking. I think they were talking specifically about Tom Brady and how he's been doing it for this long and playing at such a high level, and it applies to Steph Curry. I mean, you name any of these, a lot of not any, a lot of these guys that are performing at a high level. the crazy thing about that is not only the consistency and how long they've been working on their craft, but when you look at a guy like Steph Curry or Tom Brady, they've made so much money in their career that they could do anything they want. There's so many temptations. They could just go, they could go party, they could go on vacation, they could go do all these things. So they have so much money I mean, they could literally do anything they want. And yet they still remain focused all these years later on trying to improve on their abilities and their craft. Like that's one of the most impressive things about what they're doing, man. Like they have everything at their fingertips, yet they still choose to be consistent. They still choose to be dedicated to what they're trying to accomplish. Like I had never thought about it in that way, but it's pretty impressive.
No, absolutely. I think it's a passion, it's a love. Like if you're passionate about something, and we can think about this in like a relationship form, if there's a male or female that you're pursuing, like you are going to do everything and anything, you know, to chase that person. I'm like,
Yeah.
think about that with sports, going back to what I was discussing before with this pandemic. I think one of the things I feel like I've noticed, it put people in a position where you had to focus on whatever you were doing.
Right.
And the truth came out. Like some people are like, maybe I'm not loving this as much as I do. Seriously. And it's
Yeah.
scary. Like I said, we get to distractions. Like we're so distracted throughout the day. But now when you're in the house with just your family, or you're sitting in the front of the computer, you're like, man, do I love what I'm doing? Like, is this something that I'm gonna put in the work regardless if there's a camera in front of my face, regardless how much money I'm making or not making? Like, can you pursue and keep going? Right. And like I said, it's a gut check for sure, because you have to figure it out. Like
Yeah.
sometimes you're not gonna get the answer you were looking for,
Yeah.
but it, it really, when it comes down to it, it's how much do you love what you do? How much do you love what you do? Because nobody should force you. And I say this with my clients, like I should not be texting you and seeing when you want to come in and this and that, begging to get work in.
Yeah.
Because if this is what you love doing, like maybe you like this a lot, maybe you like it a lot. I don't, but do you love it?
Right.
You know, difference. I think we throw around the love word too easily. Like everyone's like, I love doing this. I'm like, are you sure? Or do you just like it? Because love ain't easy. As you know,
Right.
like, any love is gonna come to a point where, it makes you irritated, this and that. Like, do you love it? And I think you have to decipher that. You have to decipher that and really yeah, just really figure that out within your heart. Like, is this something that I can put my all, my every, going back to being intentional. One thing, can I put everything into it?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, man. You're making my job easy too, man. I have so many sound bites. I'm like, I can just pick a spot. It's like you spin the globe and point. That's what this is like right now. I'm like, there's so many good sound bites that I can use as promo clips for this episode. I know we have just a few more minutes. We try to keep these around 45 minutes. So, um, I just have just a couple more questions for you. Um, I want to talk about a little bit about the Sacramento Athlete Coalition. You just recently posted about that. I know you were connected with the guys over at I believe Lead Performance, and then our friends over at Hyperthrive Athletics. I've never met the owner of Lead Performance, but I have had the Hyperthrive guys on our podcast, and they're incredible at what they do. So obviously, like I keep saying, and everybody who listens to this podcast knows, like we're all about the home team. We're all about making Sacramento and the surrounding areas better. And at the end of the day, we're all a part of this same mission, the same goal of trying to help athletes and coaches become better people, better competitors, and then just live better lives. But man, you're kind of what you're doing is kind of a perfect example of that. And it seems as though you're just trying to bring together trainers, athletic trainers. But can you tell us a little bit about what this is and then why you decided to start it?
Yeah. So once again, this was one of those things that, you meet with fellow trainers or coaches, and they're like, do a get together, and it just never happens. I mean, life gets too busy. So it got to a point where I spoke to Blair Orr, that's the owner of Lead Performance, and I was just like, man, let's just send a text out. We know a lot of people. I'll send a text out to everyone I can think of, and let's just have a meetup. Let's have a meetup to where coaches, skills trainers, PTs, whatever. Let's have a meetup and really get to number one, know each other, right? And and first and foremost, this is unheard of because why would I go to my competition and be like, hey, let's collab on stuff? Like
Right.
that's not heard of. But I was just like, man, going back, you can only go so far by yourself. Like, think about it. I was like, imagine just everybody in SAC said, I'm gonna go train at Hyperthrive. Like, I don't even think they would want that.
Right.
Well, no,
Yeah.
I would that. Like, there's way too many people out here, and you're honestly just stronger together. And my thing is, and this is with the help of Blair and guys that I've worked with at my past gym fitness rangers and the Hyperthrive guy. Let's form a community, and honestly, I have to give credit to former King strength and conditioning coach Ramsey. He's the one who started this when the King took the symposium 2 years ago.
Mm.
Overwhelmed because I'm like, wow, we are in one setting where everyone's ego is down.
Mm.
So I'm like, okay, how can we create our own version of that right now? And
Yeah.
I was just do it. Like, stop thinking I don't want to plan and write notes. Like, let's just go. Like, let's go. I mean, Blair had the space. I'm like, okay, we're gonna go meet at Lead, and it was awesome. We sat down, we had conversations, and my thing is, especially in this world, like, you have your high school coaches, the private sector, PTs, we're sometimes saying different things,
Mm.
but going back, like, how can we just understand each other? You can say it in your own way, but can it be for the common goal? You know? And I was like, all right, let's form a community to where coaches can get together and talk and give your perspective so I can understand now rather than looking on your Instagram videos and people getting to Twitter fingers and commenting what they I'm like, man, like that's so like silly. Like, if you have a question, now here's an environment where so and so can speak on or you can listen and we get to understand each other and at the end of the day form a community to where everyone's welcome. Like, our ego's down and our ego, I mean, we've had three sessions so far and egos have been down. We've had some great speakers, and it's you can see there's something different being created,
Hmm.
you know, different being created as far as like I mentioned, all these, competing businesses are in one space and we're trying to better each other. I think, and that's huge for Sacramento, and this guy's only been in Sacramento for 6 years, but I'm like, this can be, this can be something way bigger than us guys. It's not just about us. Like, if we can influence people from the Bay or SoCal to whatever, like, let's do so. Let's be the first ones to do it. And it, man, it's been awesome. Honestly, like, there's so much information that I've gathered, and just I'm so excited because I didn't even imagine where this was going to be.
Hmm.
And Joshua, I was just like, hey, let's just do it. Because I'm at this point, I'm just tired of talking. Now- and now it's just like, man, there's so much value. There's there's like I said, it's man, it's really, there's no words kind of describe it because like I said, I haven't been part of anything like this, and I think those other coaches can attest to that too. But it's something great happening here in Sacramento, and
Yeah.
anyone, like, you're more than welcome to join. Like, this is not a secret thing. This is something that we're putting out, and like, the more the merrier, because it takes a community, it takes a village.
Yeah.
And there are way too many adults, athletes out there, for just one, business. So it's awesome, man. I'm so excited for the things to come.
I love it, man. I love everything I've seen so far, and I love the hearing the heart behind it, and the it seems like it's been received really well by everybody that's attended so far. So I'm hoping that it just continues to grow. And again, I hope you know this, man. Anything that we can do to help you guys promote it, to help get the word out, you just send it our way, because we want to, again, if we're not pushing that type of stuff for people that we know and trust in the athletic world, then like I don't even know why I named this home team Sacramento. Like it doesn't it doesn't even make any sense. You know what I mean? So I love what you guys are doing, and I'm definitely looking forward to hearing more about this whole thing as it grows and evolves. So um man, last question for you. This is kind of a big one, but I feel like I'm excited to hear your answer. When it comes here to the home team, when it comes here to Sacramento, your place as a trainer, your place as a coach, as a person of influence in this city, what would you like your legacy to be when it's all said and done?
Mm. See, I knew you were gonna come with a deep question. I
We save it for the end. Yeah.
honestly, I I personally just want to be looked at as a guy that, I mean, he gave everything he had of himself to help others. Honestly, I think that that's the biggest thing. I want my kids to understand it. My thing with G6, with the Sacramento Athletic Coalition, like the term I've used, and is I want to plant seeds for trees that I'll never see. And I think that that's part of legacy. Like it's we have these visions, and honestly, the great visions, you don't even see the highest potential of them. Think about the people who started this. Whether that's building, architect, or like think about all the best things that we have in this world. Like I'm talking on this iPhone right here. Mr. Jobs didn't get to see this, but he put the foundation down, and that's something that I want to create here in Sacramento. I want this to be at the beginning. This is where the seed is at, right? I think I told you this 2 years ago. I'm not just looking to be the best trainer in Sac. Like I want to make sure I can reach out nationwide. This brand is not just about, even though I love it. I love being here. The 916, but it's like I said, this is just the beginning, and I want my children to carry it on. Man, it'd be crazy to see what this can be like in 100+ years. Just they do with it, because I mean, I can only take it so far, right? And yeah, man, like I said, when people mention my name, I just want them to understand that where my heart's at. I'm always seeking to be not a perfect man, but a progressive man. No, and just continue to do so. I have my flaws just like everybody else, but at the end of the day, like I mentioned earlier, I was put on this earth to just help people. It's not about me, and that's one thing I tell everybody. G6 is, we just said it. It was just a college number. G nothing without the people, and that's just how I feel. That's how I feel personally. I feel like with anything, I'm like life is about people, about relationships. And I want to continue to meet as many people as I can, and form relationships, and have those, have all those carry on.
Yeah.
You Yeah,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's where we're gonna end this thing right now. That's how we're gonna end it. That's a great answer, man. We appreciate the time, like I said, especially with the clock ticking
Yeah,
on your the new addition to your family, man. I definitely appreciate that. I was feeling nervous on this podcast for you. I'm like, he could just take off at any minute right now.
got the kids to put to bed. We're back at it tomorrow morning. But yeah, I'm just on call right now. We're gonna welcome the third edition, and it's a blessing, man. I'm very excited about meeting them.
That's awesome, man. Well, congrats on that. Where can people follow you on social media, website, all those things?
Yeah, so website is g6athletes.com. On social media, we have Instagram. We actually just created a G6 performance page, G6 performance training. My personal page, Gabe Lemon, can't forget it. Last name just like the fruit. Uh,
Easy enough.
yeah, easy enough. And yeah, man, just anyone, you feel free to DM me. I'd love to collab with people. Like I said, I'm an open vessel. I want to learn from them as much as they can learn from me. So
Perfect, man. Well, as always, man, we appreciate it. We're thankful, grateful that you're a part of our home team here, man, and thankful for all that you're doing in the athletic community here in Sacramento, man. So, keep it up. Good luck. Get that sleep now, man. Get that sleep now.
back at it. We are back at it.
Yeah.
I think I'm going for man to zone right now.
There you go. On that note, man, we will see you guys later.